everyone, it's Lynnea, and today I have the video for the Flavor of the Month card kit by Scrapping for Less, and this is the February 2019 kit. It's called Whip It Up. So let's dive right in here to collection number 1, and I'm going to be using sketch number 4. So I stamped out the Baking Marcy stamp set by La La Land Crafts onto some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to be using my brush tip markers here to color her in. And I'm going to preface this by saying I fussed with this probably way too much. I should have let it go about 3 times over, but I didn't like it, and so I kept coloring, and I colored over things, and I used water to blot it up and recolor. I left a lot of that out. Just because you don't need to see all my mistakes and all that good stuff. But basically all I did was color and blend like I usually do. I blended some out with water. I blended some in between colors here. So like I started with a dark pink and blended with a light pink for her headband. But you're going to see in the end, I colored over this with red. And I had her be like a little dirty blonde girl. But I colored over that with a medium brown color. I just didn't like the way that things were coming together here. I think my biggest problem was that I used too many colors. So you're going to see my coloring in future images become much simpler and use less colors because I just didn't like, I wish I hadn't done the green on her sleeves. So here what I'm doing is I thought that this turned out too orange. So I colored over it with some water and I'm blotting it up. And now I'm looking at her dress and her hair and I'm saying, oh geez, well, they're the same color. So I'm going to grab a brown color and just kind of, I'm not really coloring in her hair. It's, I'm trying to make it look textured. I'm not that great at coloring in hair, but that's what I'm trying to do is just give it a darker tone of the brown. So I messed with it. So you're going to see the next time that it's completely different. Okay, so I'm going to make a shaker card. So I have 2 stitched circles and I taped them together and ran them through my die cut machine so I could have a little white frame. And then I also die cut some fun foam and also some acetate and that sprinkles paper. And these are all going to be my little parts to make up my shaker. So to start, I have this little white frame, and that's what I made by taping those 2 circles together. And then I'm going to glue on the piece of acetate and also that little ring of fun foam. And in hindsight, I wish I had done 2 layers of fun foam because the sequins don't move around all that much, but that's okay. It'll mail easier with just the 1 layer. So my trick for shaker cards is to always add some of your anti-static powder tool, what you would use for heat embossing. Add that around the edges of the inside of your fun foam or your tape layer, and that will just help with static electricity. You can see all the static on these sequins. They're staying inside the bag, they're jumping around, sticking to my skin. It's been cold where I am, so the heat's been on all day, every day, and so I think that's just causing some static electricity in my house. So I'm going to remove the adhesive. This fun foam has adhesive on one side. And I'm just going to apply that cardstock background to it. And now you can see all those little sequins shaking around with that colorful sprinkles background. So this is my completed girl image. And she is the same image that you saw me coloring originally. But like I said, I just colored over things to kind of tone her down a little bit. I wanted her to be brightly colored, but in the end she was too bright. So I colored over her with some deeper tones of markers. I added on my sentiment strip, and I'm just going to trim that off, and then that will be it for this first card using collection 1 and sketch number 4. All right, so for collection 2, I'm using sketch 2, and I stamped out the little Baking Luca stamp set by La La Land Crafts onto some watercolor cardstock, and I'm just going to switch back over to my Staedtler felt-tipped pens. I tried those brush pens on my last card, and I'm just more comfortable with the Staedtler felt-tipped pens. These are my tried and true, known and loved watercolor markers, but I'm going to use the same technique that I usually do, just adding some color around the edges and where there should be shading, and then blending out with my water brush pen. And I'm just going to keep on coloring him in, and I definitely used less colors for for this one rather than what I did on the last one. I just used yellow for his shirt, some blue for his little jeans, brown for his shoes, and I left his apron white so that I could have some neutrals. The brown that I used on his shoes is the same brown as what I used for his hair, and it definitely looks better when you color an image and you use the same color in more than one area. So I like how this one turned out versus my first card. So I cut a mask onto it's a full stick Post-it note, and I covered him up. And now I'm coming in with some antique linen Distress Oxide ink, and I'm keeping the inking darker around the edges and lighter around his little body there. I have some of the papers, and these are the Baked with Love paper collection by Scrapping for Less, and I'm following that sketch number 2 to the letter for the most part. I love the whisk and spatula background paper. I really thought that was cute, and I didn't want anything to overwhelm that too much, so that's why I just went with the polka dot papers to build the rest of my card. Here's the big reveal, just taking off that masking paper, and look at him. He was perfectly protected from that inking, but I like how the background has that brownish tone to it. I think that really fits in with the cream color on the pattern papers. So that is my card for collection number 2 using Sketch 2. For collection number 3, this is actually one of my favorite cards that I made today. It has the Let's Bake a Pie paper by Scrapping for Less and this Cutie Pie stamp set by Lawn Fawn. And I have actually had this stamp set for years and have never inked it up. So I'm so thankful it was in this kit because it gave me an excuse to use it, and it is so cute. And I'm going to leave all of my coloring in for you. I sped it up, but this is a relatively simple image, so I left the whole thing in there for you. I used some DR7 and DR5 on the little, the pie plate. And I'm using my Spectrum Noir markers just because I have more reds and browns in Spectrum Noir than I do Copic, but you can use whatever you want. You could use your watercolors for this little pie. I just thought that I would mix it up and do some alcohol markers. So I used GB10 and GB8 on the crust of the pie, so it would be a little bit darker than the actual pie itself. And then I used GB8 as my dark color for the top of the pie and EB2 as my mid-tone to color that in. And I will end up adding some Spectrum Noir clear shimmer pen over top. So I wanted to use this label as part of my focal image, but it's a sticker. So I went back and forth between deciding if I wanted to just use my powder tool behind it to remove that stick, but I thought that it would look cute with a little white border. So I added it to some white cardstock, and I'm just going to use my scissors to fussy cut around the outside. And I've added some foam squares to my little pie here, as well as the little steam marks that are going to come out of the top of the pie. And I'm going to add that onto the label. I'm just going to fuss around with it for a little bit because get it positioned right. And then I'm using some craft cardstock for the background, as well as some of the Let's Bake a Pie papers by Scrapping for Less. And I'm just going to be adding those on following sketch number 1, and that'll be that. I popped up the sentiment with some fun foam, just like I did with that label. Of course, I'm using my T-square ruler to make sure it's straight, and I'm just going to hold this up, and you're going to be able to see that I did add some sparkle to that pie. Okay, so for collection number 4, I'm using sketch 3 and the Cookie Mouse stamp set by Scrapping for Less. This stamp set is so adorable. It has this mouse, and he's just perfectly sized. You know, he's not too small, he's not too big. He's so cute and so simple to color. And the sentiments have all kinds of words, so you can build a big sentiment if you want to. I ended up using a sentiment that was in the stamp set because I just thought it was so cute, but I love that there's all those words and you can completely customize whatever sentiment you want. So I stamped him onto Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm using my Staedtler felt tip pens to color him in. And these papers are my favorite from the kit. These are the Cookies and Milk papers by Scrapping for Less. And on the reverse side of that craft and white stripe, there are cookies and milks and everything to make a background. So I trimmed a little milk carton out and a little cookie out, and I'm going to have this little mouse holding these snacks because my sentiment says some days require cookies. And that's something that my mom and I say all the time. Some days you just need a cookie, so we'll just bake something because you just need that sweet snack some days. And so I thought this little mouse would be so cute holding on to those. So I'm following sketch number 3 using these cute pattern papers and some of the craft cardstock again for my background. I popped up my little mouse with some foam squares, and I'm just going to set him there next to my sentiment, and I think this turned out so cute, one of my favorites. So next, let's take a look at some of the things in the banana split level. This is definitely worth it to upgrade. You get an amazing stamp set that has my favorite sentiment in the whole kit, and some awesome dies, a rolling pin and a little whisk. So I knew I wanted to have a rainbow of whisks for my background. So I'm using a bunch of colors of Distress inks and just using a whole piece of the 8.5 by 11 cardstock that comes in the kit and just creating little blotches of color. There's no need to really blend them because I'm going to die cut a whole bunch of those whisks. And look at that, that is my layout for my card, and I just think it's so cute. I'm gonna add this into my MISTI, and I don't have anything glued down. I just have the whisks there as placements for where I want to put my sentiment. So I'm going to put this card into my MISTI. It is 3.5 inches tall by 9 inches wide, so it will fit into a business size envelope. And sometimes I like to just step out of that regular A2 sized card, especially since I wanted to use a whole rainbow of whisks just lined up here. So I'm using my T-square ruler to make sure that I have everything straight. I didn't do this for my first 3 whisks, and I'm going to be honest, it's going to bother me because they are just the slightest bit off. They're not, especially that mint colored one. You're going to see when I try to line it up, it's not completely straight with the rest of them, and that will probably bother me for a while, but that's okay. So tip is to just use your T-square ruler and line them up, and I've just have them alternating so they're going up and down. And then I use my Spectrum Noir clear shimmer pen over top of them. So this card is just a rainbow of baking goodness. I think it's so cute. So let's take a look at all the cards that I made today. I'll lay them out in order, collection 1, 2, 3, and 4. And remember that you can head over to my blog to see still photos of all of these and to get some product links and some more information. And there is a blog hop for the release of this February card kit by Scrapping for Less. So I hope you'll stop by my blog. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know what's your favorite down in the comments. I love to know what you guys are loving. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.